Introductory story. The first mention of the Wallenbergs is associated with Per Hansen, who married Kirsten Jacob's daughter in 1692. Born from the marriage of Per and Kirsten, Jacob Persson Wallenberg was married twice, and the children from each of these marriages bore the surname Wallenberg. Jacob Persson Wallenberg was the great-grandfather of Andre Oskar Wallenberg, who in 1856 created the predecessor of the modern Swedish bank Skandinaviska Enskilda Banken, Stockholms Enskilda Bank. Knut Agathon Wallenberg, son of Andre Oskar Wallenberg, took over as director of the Stockholms Enskilda Bank in 1886. In addition to the fact that Knut Wallenberg was the director of Stockholms Enskilda Bank, he, like many other representatives of the Wallenberg family, took an active part in Swedish politics and served as Minister of Foreign Affairs from 1914 to 1917. In addition to serving as Swedish Foreign Minister, Knut Wallenberg was a member of the Swedish Parliament from 1907 to 1919. In 1916, the legislation on the ownership of shares in Swedish industrial enterprises by banks was tightened, as a result of which the investor company was created as the investment division of Stockholms Enskilda Bank, under the management of which the industrial assets of the Wallenberg family were transferred. Knut Wallenberg's younger brother, Marcus Wallenberg, continued the family tradition and in 1911 was appointed director of Stockholms Enskilda Bank. In 1938, Knut Wallenberg died and Marcus Wallenberg joined the board of directors of Stockholms Enskilda Bank in his place. During World War II, Stockholms Enskilda Bank actively collaborated with Germany, and United States Treasury Secretary Henry Morgenthau suspected Jacob Wallenberg of personal Nazi sympathies. The American authorities imposed sanctions against Stockholms Enskilda Bank, which were lifted only in 1947. But you will learn about this story a little later, friends. What is the Wallenberg family like? They presented Europe as a large game board on which invisible hands carefully move economic pieces. But at the helm at any given time is a family, often not the Rothschilds, as one might assume, but rather the Wallenbergs. To put this into perspective, the Wallenbergs historically had so much power that they were able to keep their country out of war. Two cousins of diplomat Raoul Wallenberg played officially sanctioned, but controversial roles in neutral Sweden's diplomacy during World War II. Moreover, just a couple of decades later, at the height of the Wallenbergs' power in the 1970s, their various firms together employed 40% of Sweden's industrial workforce. Even today, the company employs more than 1 million people worldwide. Now, their dominant presence is not limited to just their homeland of Sweden. It is an omnipresent presence that permeates every corner of the European economy and influences it as much as the air we breathe. The Wallenbergs, through their investment company, holds the keys to some of Europe's most impressive corporate castles. Their scepter points to AstraZeneca, a towering fortress on the pharmaceutical landscape, and Ericsson, a beacon guiding the development of telecommunications. Of course, given AstraZeneca's recent ups and downs, you can imagine how much power they have if they are literally one of the largest families of vaccines. Their influence on these businesses is not just that of a random investor. No, they actually steer these economic ships, charting their strategic course, shaping global health and the digital frontier. Surprisingly, their empire employs a shocking 1 million people, whose livelihoods are tied to the colossal holdings of this shadowy dynasty. Their company, Crown Jewel Investor, has grown since its first public offering in 1919, a year before evidence of an unprecedented rise in wealth emerged. This resulted in a total shareholder return so astronomical that it dwarfs any understanding, an astounding 167,320 times the original investment. This figure adds up to an equally impressive compound annual growth rate of 12.5%, which is a testament to their financial skills and foresight. Moreover, during the transformative era of the 1970s, the dynasty's businesses were the beating heart of the Swedish economy, employing a staggering 40% of the Swedish industrial workforce. They acted not only as investors, but also as an indispensable support, a pulsating artery of the country's economic life. Today, we stand on the edge of the abyss, ready to lift the veil that hides this powerful dynasty. Are you ready to unravel the mystery of such unprecedented wealth and influence? Let's plunge into the whirlpool of this silent, but at the same time formidable force. At the helm of the European economic leviathan, whose name echoes throughout history, is a family whose power and influence are almost unmatched. Now let's talk about the Wallenberg treasure. It is not just a bank. Think of it as a mighty river whose flow of finance feeds the economic landscapes of Europe. Its reach is vast, its grip is firm, and its influence, like the Wallenbergs, is unparalleled. And that's not all. This story of European dominance does not end with healthcare, telecommunications, and finance. The Wallenberg royal coat of arms also adorns other corporate bastions such as Atlas Copco and Saab, each a titan in their respective fields of industry and defense, putting the Wallenbergs' overall financial reach in Europe into perspective. Would be akin to counting the stars in the sky. It is huge, it is breathtaking, and in many sectors it dwarfs the Rothschilds. Their legacy, their influence on economic policy, their business prowess is absolutely monumental. But of course we now have to ask, how did they get here? What family history and strategic moves led them to this echelon of power? To answer this question, we must turn back the clock a little and transfer our story to the countryside of 17th century Sweden. In the midst of bustling fields and serene lakes, a humble farmer named Pierre Hansen works the unforgiving land. Sweden's farmland, especially in the region where the Hansen family lives, has proven itself to be a harsh taskmaster. It requires constant hard work, but in return develops fortitude and fosters a strong sense of community among its inhabitants. For these energetic farmers, life is a continuous waltz with nature, a challenge but also a shared experience. These villagers are hidden in the province of Västergötland, a land rich in cultural heritage and natural splendor, clearly distinguished by its bloody plains and ancient rock paintings. The thought of becoming a vital cog in the wheel of European history seems as distant as the stars twinkling overhead. Among Hansen's sons, only one decides to take a new name, Wallenberg. Then he did not yet understand that this name was destined to echo in the corridors of time, turning into a symbol of power and influence in Europe. After the layout designer, our timeline now jumps to the 19th century. The curtain rises to reveal the new protagonist, André Oscar Wallenberg, born in 1816. This fearless man, who once sailed the high seas as a naval officer, soon set a course for uncharted waters, the world of finance. In the 1850s, Wallenberg, as fate would have it, found himself as an intermediary in issuing loans to the owner of a sawmill. It was a departure from his naval training, but his enterprising and tenacious spirit took it as a challenge to overcome. He had the soul of an explorer and the mind of a strategist, traits that served him well at sea and in finance. The same man with whom he ran this enterprise later joined him in the creation of the first Zinsval brewery, which led to the emergence of the Wallenberg banking empire. The same story from the beginning of the video actually plays out with André's son, Knut Agathon Wallenberg. Becoming a naval officer, he worked his way into the banking world, and after the death of his father in 1886, he ascended the throne of the Stockholm Bank in Skilder. Under his watchful eye, the bank became the linchpin of Sweden's industrial revolution, becoming a conduit connecting Swedish industry to the deep pockets of the French capital markets. With his immeasurable wealth, Knut Agathon became a titan of Swedish society, even serving as foreign minister during the turbulent war years from 1914 to 1917. Moreover, the Wallenbergs did more than simply exercise their influence in the worlds of finance and politics. Education was another area where they shaped the future. In 1903, Knut Agathon generously donated a large sum to the founding of the Stockholm School of Economics. This prestigious educational institution continues to operate to this day, still under the watchful tutelage of the Wallenbergs. The elder brother of Marcus Wallenberg, the younger brother of Knut Agathon and successor as CEO of the bank, was a legal scholar who gave birth to numerous companies and banks. As we fast forward to the present 2023, Wallenberg's name still figures prominently in Swedish industry. Jacob Wallenberg, the current patriarch, is at the helm of Investor, the company founded by his ancestors in 1916. With a portfolio worth a staggering $65 billion, the Wallenbergs continue to shape Sweden's corporate landscape. In their homeland, the Wallenbergs have long been entrenched in politics. Their connections span all major political parties, with some of their family members serving in the Swedish parliament and others holding key government positions. But their influence extends beyond policies and regulations. Wallenberg forged strategic relationships with some of Europe's most powerful families and political figures.